Hey, how you guys doing? Nosy Joe here. Welcome back to my channel. Out in the barn today working on this Dodge truck I bought, which I don't know if I regret it, but it's been kind of a pain in the butt. I mainly bought it because it's got this Cummins 5.9. I'd never had one before, and the only way to get one, unfortunately, is by buying a Dodge truck and enjoying all the problems that comes along with. So what I'm working on today has nothing to do with the Cummins per se, but if you've read anything about these or owned one of these trucks, you know that they kind of plagued with little electrical issues and charging issues. So today I'm replacing the entire charging system. Earlier this week I went ahead and pulled out the batteries and the cables and the alternator. That's all been removed, and somewhere over here, yep, in this box, get that. Got a brand new Bosch alternator. I wanted the OEM alternator. I didn't want one of these AutoZone ones because I wanted to last. I mean, this one here that I took off, I'm not sure where it went, but it looks like the original one to me, and it had 270,000 miles. So if this one lasts that long, I'll be happy with that. Another problem with these is all the cables. I've already removed mine. There they are. There are all my cables I removed. You got crossover cable, 2 batteries, 2 grounds going to the engine, power going to the starter, etc. You also got these relays here. To wake up my screen. They go over to the grid heaters. I'm going to replace those. And then and I can't bust on Dodge too much without studying this, but they have the PCM as part of the field wiring on the alternator, and basically don't let the alternator do its job unless the PCM is getting the right signal, and it kind of grounds out the field wiring on the alternator and allows it to charge. Well, I don't know if I have that problem or not, but I'm not going to have that problem when I'm done. I've ordered this quick start external voltage regulator, which is what, not necessarily quick start, but just the external voltage regulator is what cars used forever without any trouble. So, Dodge saved $1 per vehicle when they produced these by not having an external voltage regulator and let the engine computer do that. That's fine and dandy, but I'm not doing that. I want this thing to be simple. And if there is a problem with the engine computer, they're very expensive, like $800. So, all that said, I'm going to have new batteries, new alternator, all new cables, and I'm going to regulate the alternator charging to 14.3 volts with an external voltage regulator. So that's what I'm going to be working on today, and I'll show you some of the progress and what it looks like when it's done, and hopefully when it fires up we're going to see a solid 14.3 on that dash as opposed to 8, which is what I started out with before I tore it all apart. All right, a little bit of update here. Made a little bit of progress. First, I got my new heater relay modules here for the grid. These are Dorman products I put in. So those are installed. I've also mounted the voltage regulator external. Again, Dodge is doing this through the PCM, the engine computer, meaning turning on the alternator and regulating the voltage. Don't know why they do that. GM does an internally regulated alternator and has for a long time. And so why Dodge has an external and then he decides to use a computer to do that is beyond me. But I'm mounting it here right next to where the alternator will be. I mounted it to the engine hook, which is just used to pull the engine in and out. And if I'm pulling it out, it's going in another truck, I tell you what. In the instructions I read, it's really important to get a good ground on this housing for the regulator. So I thought where better place to do that than on the engine itself, where there's already two battery cables are grounded to the engine. So I made a little stud here as well, because I'm supposed to go from the alternator over to it. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I put a 1/4-20 stud here that can act as a ground for chassis and whatever else I need clean going to the voltage regulator. I've also cleaned up the fuse box real good. It was dusty. This truck has an air dog on it, and they've added the wire here to feed that, and they just kind of ran it out the back side and didn't do a good job of notching out the fuse box. So there was all kinds of dust in here, and this is also a source of a lot of issues with these Dodges is the fuse box. So getting that cleaned up as well. And so next step here is to do the wiring for the regulator. Now, I forgot to mention one thing I did do here is, so of course I've mentioned it's controlled by the computer, the voltage regulator. So there's an FRM module that I mounted down in here. Hopefully you can see that below the grid heater relays. And this is what the two wires that formerly went to the alternator field wiring connectors now will go to this, and kind of trick out the computer so you don't get a engine code or a check engine light. So hopefully that works out. Okay, a little update here before I put the alternator in so you can see what's going on. Again, got the external voltage regulator mounted. They made a big deal in the directions about making sure this thing was grounded, well, the case of it. So like I said, I put a 1/4-20 stud right here. I ran a ground wire over here to the fender, which is where the battery also has a body ground as well. Again, one reason I chose the engine mount or engine pull location is because the engine's grounded to both batteries, so I think that should be just fine. I grafted in the plug that used to plug into the alternator from the PCM. I grafted it in to the voltage regulator, and then the old PCM wiring down below I have going to the FRM module, which I mounted there below the heater relays. So the only other electrical connection I need to make is over in the fuse box, finding a spare place, which I found number 30 and 31. Both those are spares because the voltage regulator needs a signal from the ignition. So all I need to do now is mount the alternator and plug my field wire in there, and then when I get my battery cables, positive lead off the battery will go to, on this side, will go to the alternator. Then through the crossover cable, charge the battery that'll go here, and then this battery has power down to the starter, and then both batteries ground to the engine. So that should be it. Got a new pigtail that'll feed the grid heater relays as well. So I'll give you an update when I get that far. All right, so I got my alternator back in, voltage regulator connected to the alternator right here. I reused the original plug, and again, just to review, the PCM wires then go to this FRM module that I mounted underneath the glow, or not the glow plug, but heater grid relays, which I also replaced brand new. The only thing I lack at the moment is, besides these two wires going to the field, there's a third wire from the new regulator that's going to run across here, and here it is. But I need to get that in the fuse box, and I need to get one of these little fuse pigtail deals so I can do that connection more properly. So I'm going to run to the store, and my battery cables have not arrived yet, so I'm going to have to finish this video on a different day. But as soon as those arrive, I got my two brand new diehards right here ready to go. Diehard Gold 850s. Here's the old alternator, by the way. Like I said, I think that's been on there since the truck was new. So it did a good job. It's a good Bosch alternator, and that's what I put on the truck for the replacement. So I'm thinking that'll work out well. And for these Dodges to work right, all these connections got to be real good, especially your grounds. So anyway, to be continued. I'll be back when the cables are here. Hey, how you guys doing? It's a couple days later. I got my cables in, and really nice cables from custombatterycables.com. All the connectors were perfect. Came with real nice setup on everything. Everything was the right length for both batteries. And I did the heater grid control relays, and I did a new battery or a new alternator cable as well, which is hard to see now with the air cleaner in place, but it's all in there, and I'm about ready to go on a test drive. So real happy with everything, how it looked, and with that, let's go for a drive. Alright, here we go. Here's the results. Running down the interstate at about 15 volts. It's bouncing back and forth a little bit because it's cold out, and the heater grids are doing their thing, but I think we solved the problem. It was only running about 8 volts. It'd fire up at about 12 volts, and then when you get going, it dropped down to 8 volts before. So definitely fixed the issue. Again, real happy with the cables from Custom Battery Cables. Would recommend those. And anyway, hope this video helped you. Until next time, later. Hey, how you guys doing? Just want to give an update on my truck. Pretty much had it done and happy with it, but I did notice after driving it a week a couple problems with kind of a pulsation of must be voltage related. I could see it in the lights, so I got to thinking about why that might be. If you recall, I powered the external voltage regulator directly from the fuse box, and I'm thinking, well, that must have been too much kind of probably inducing variable load coming from that external voltage regulator there. So what I did today is I picked up a power from a battery, almost directly from the battery here, and ran it to a relay, and then from the relay over to the voltage regulator for its power, and then I just switched that through the ignition through that same fuse tap that I used. So instead of going from the fuse tap directly to the voltage regulator, I'm going fused tap through the relay as a signal, which closes and brings direct battery power over to the voltage regulator. So any type of fluctuation, the battery will be taking it, and not the whole fuse and relay center over here. So hopefully that works. And again, what I was seeing was some kind of pulsating in my lights and interior lights and everything. Everything worked all right, and the gauge looked good, but I felt like that wasn't quite right. So hopefully that takes care of that. And otherwise, everything's been working real real well. Later.